Welcome to Presence, Improv, and Intention, the podcast where we explore the powerful intersection between spontaneous creativity and deliberate leadership. I'm your host, Sheila Carmichael. In today's business world, we often find ourselves caught between rigid planning and the need to adapt in the moment. We prepare detailed strategies, but face unpredictable challenges. We seek control, but must also embrace uncertainty. This tension isn't a problem to solve. It's actually the space to thrive in. So as an executive coach, I've witnessed how the strongest leaders are those who can bring focused intention to unpredictable situations. They're present enough to respond to what's actually happening, not just what they expect to happen. The principles of purpose and improvisation teach us to say yes and to whatever emerges, to build on unexpected offerings rather than blocking them, to trust ourselves enough to let go of the script when necessary. Intention gives that spontaneity direction. Without it, we're just reacting. With it, we're responding with purpose. In each episode, I'll bring you conversations with executives and leadership experts who operate in this dynamic space. We'll explore practical techniques for developing presence, that quality that allows you to command a room without dominating it, to listen deeply while thinking strategically, and to bring your authentic self to your leadership role. Join me as we define, discover, and decide how to lead with both improvisation and intention, finding power in presence. Today's guest is not only my amazing friend, but she's a remarkable HR leader who has 15 years of experience in employee engagement. Raquel Lowe Hubbard, a people-first HR leader with experience around DE&I and also cultural transformation. She leads people strategies across multiple site organizations, specializing in building inclusive, valued-aligned experiences that improve retention and morale. Certified in people and cultural strategy, Raquel is passionate about helping teams feel connected, supported, and proud of the culture they create together. Raquel, my friend.
Hey.
Our partner.
Good to see you. Good to be with you.
Oh my God, I'm so happy to have you on today. I couldn't help but remember when we first met. We were both starting out and taking our PHR.
That's right.
And we were in class and there was like this instant click.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Presence. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What's your reflection around that?
Oh boy, I remember those times very fondly. And I remember that class and it just automatically connecting with you. And, it's just been a friendship ever since. I always say a very balanced friendship, over the years. And especially during that time, I remember our little note cards that we used to put together and we'd go walking and we'd quiz each other on potential questions on the exam, and but very good times. And I've valued the years of knowing you and have gained so much from you as a friend and as a leader in our industry. So it's been
Oh
great.
my goodness. That has been reciprocated 100 times and more, right? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. When I think about the work we were starting off doing then to where today, I mean, there's a lot that has changed, and then there's a lot that really hasn't, right?
Right.
Some things are still the same.
Yeah. Some things are the same. They're just called different things at this point. That's how trends work, I guess.
Yes, yes, yes. I invited you on because I recall this passion you have and continue to have. And that's when I know it's a real passion, when people, they go all in on it. They continue to strengthen their skills in it.
Yeah.
They know that there's a need for this, and there's a personal mission they have for them. So I'm curious about what is that for you, Raquel?
That for me is definitely a passion for people. And oftentimes, I know earlier, everybody knows better now that in HR, when people are interviewing in that space, well, what would make you a great HR professional? Oh, I like people. But you're like, that's the no. But it's really true that I do genuinely like people. I want more than just liking people, but I want the best for people. And with that has been a passion of how do I help to create spaces for people, and whether you call them employees, whether you call them teammates or associates, that you're able to create a space where people feel valued and are able to perform at their best. Oftentimes companies will refer to their employee bases or want to relay that we're a family. Well, we're not necessarily family, but we do want to cultivate a relationship in which we care for each other, and thus in turn, we care for the business. So that's where my passion lies, and ultimately making sure that in that space, at the end of the day, we're doing the right thing. I had a senior vice president that I worked with closely years ago, who always said, Raquel, as long as we're doing the right thing and we have integrity in that, then we're going to be okay. You're always going to be right. And that has held true through the years. And that's how, and the approach that I use in coaching leaders to do that.
Yeah.
To live with integrity, to live with intention, behave in such a way that when people, speak of you, that they can say, oh, yeah, oh, I know that person. And yeah, they are true. It's not just word speak or fancy things on the wall. That's how they actually move.
Good. I love that. And it just makes me think about, like you said, it's not just words on a wall. It's some marketing around. This is our culture. We're a people-centered culture.
Right.
And you hear that even more and more. I mean, as generations continue to mix within the workplace, and leaders are having challenges with how to manage this culture and shape the culture. I'm really curious, when you think about the culture of an organization and a leader's presence for influencing that culture, what's your take on that?
Well, very simply, I always tell people culture is what others see you do every day. It's the blood and soul of the organization, yes, but it's more than just words on the wall. It's more than just fancy captions. It's more than the marketing of your core values. It's how you as a leader behave every day, what people see, what your intentions are. So, I think about that. In fact, I'll give you an example of how a leader that I used to work with would show up every day for people. And he really walked into this purpose. And that was that if you see something that's wrong in the organization, if you see something that's wrong that's happening in operations, it's your obligation to go fix it. For instance, in this food and beverage concept, the line was very long. It was new staff there. They were struggling to get things done and get things out, kind of chaotic. And instead of this leader just walking by and saying, "Oh, well, that's not my store, and I'm going on to my unit," he jumped in. Not only did he jump in, he pulled me in, and I had to work the fry station.
Got recruited.
I got recruited on the spot immediately, because at the end of the day, his objective was that if one struggles in our organization, we're all struggling. It's all a poor reflection of our company. So with that, he was intentional about how he showed up for people and acted as such every day. You saw that behavior modeled for everyone in the organization. And it also became an unspoken expectation for others. So as a result, it transforms, it sculpts the culture of the organization and of the leadership team to say, okay, that's the behavior that is expected of me. And then thus I have to mimic that, if that, to use maybe a poor word, but I have to follow that model, if you will, to make sure that I'm taking care of people.
And that's so powerful, Raquel,
Mm-hmm.
because you described in the moment. It wasn't like there was a set playbook to follow, right? It was in the moment, having to make a decision based on where my values are at, where my principles are at. So I'm really improvising in the moment, but making a swift, authentic decision based on that comment you made, like, when one struggles, we all struggle. That's a principle. And then even if you've got this list of, I remember working at organizations where we had the list of the code of our
conduct, and
not just the business conduct, but how should we perform in teams and all of this and all that. But if the leader is not demonstrating that in some form or fashion, now there's a disconnect between the message and what I'm supposed to see as an anchor behind that unwritten rule.
That's right.
Here's the written rule, but I guess we all don't have to do that. Or
and let me tell you, leaders who don't behave in the way that they preach, people know that, and they will call people on that. And that's the worst deteriorator of culture or breakdown in culture in organizations, is when leaders say one thing but do another, because people are always going to be watchful of how you behave, what decisions you make, how you communicate, and basically just how you move as an individual. They watch your behaviors. They believe your behaviors. They may hear what you're saying, but they're going to believe your behaviors every time. And that's really going to tell the story.
If we take that another step further, right? So we've got the culture of the organization being driven by leadership behaviors. And if they're real, sincere, and authentic.
That's right.
What you mentioned before, like the marketing. I was just on a conversation with another friend who's in a job market now with everything that's going on, right? And they picked up on how on their website and, whatever their marketing paraphernalia is, it shows and portrays a message of one thing, but when they showed up for the interview, it didn't match. Like, remember those highlight magazines?
Yes.
Like, what's different between these two pictures? Like, something's not matching here. What's going on here? And people, it's not just the visuals not matching, but the behaviors are not being seen as they were projected on their website, or when they got on a call and they put on their Sunday best or something, right? It's just disconnected here. What's your take on that organizationally and lining that up?
Well, I'll go even deeper or beyond, the first day, so to speak, beyond orientation. Orientation is the time when you're putting it on, you've rolled out the red carpet and, oh, wow, this organization seems great. And then 2 weeks in, you're like, for real? I thought they said that they believed it. And oftentimes, more than not, that will also reflect in engagement surveys, because you have I have seen the best marketing campaigns, internal and external marketing campaigns, And then in engagement surveys, people are like, that's not the behavior that I see.
Yeah.
Teamwork, that's a core value. I don't believe it because I don't see it.
Exactly.
So the challenge then for organizations and leaders is, how do we match our behaviors to reflect the core values, or match them to our core values? How do we do that? Or what are some things that we can do in that space? And I always suggest, certainly I think it takes a lot of emotional intelligence to hold the mirror up to yourself.
Yes.
And be reflective, be honest about your own leadership behaviors. And really, I will go even further to say, really understand, am I managing or am I leading? Because you can manage tasks, you can be managing tactical things, but when you're dealing with people, you need to have the competency of leadership. And one of the things I hate, is a pet peeve of mine, is when people refer to leadership skills as soft skills.
Yes.
It's like fingernails on chalkboard. I hate that, because it's one of the hardest competencies and one of the hardest skills you can develop as a leader is around those leadership skills: communication, empathy. How do you engage with a team? How do you inspire a team and motivate them? So those skills I always refer to as power skills. And really understand that to tap into those power skills in order to build a great culture. So holding up that reflection to yourself to see, okay, well, who am I really? Who do my people see me as? If I were to do a 360 review, how am I taking that feedback? Am I just, passing it off and saying, oh, well, such and so, they're trouble anyway? Or am I actually taking that feedback and using that as a tool to be better as a leader, and really to take care? Simon Sinek says, take care of people in my charge.
I'm like the assessment queen. So you said a couple of things there. I can recall even some employee engagement surveys. And one of the things, sometimes employees don't want to be honest.
Well, you know why that is?
They've picked up on, right? They've seen these behaviors, the presence that's not aligning with what you're saying and what you're speaking.
Yeah.
And so then they don't give the right answer. Or when they do give honest, candid feedback, whether it's an engagement survey, a 360, or whatever it might be, and the leader's presence is to dismiss it.
Or not even address it.
Nope, it didn't even show up.
Didn't acknowledge. Yeah.
Not acknowledging anything. There's no follow-up.
Right.
There's no communication. There's not even a thank you.
Right. So, as an employee, I'm like, well, what was the point? I won't do that again. I will not do that again.
Even when they try to say it's anonymous, are the systems and things in place that truly make it anonymous, or is it confidential? Those are two different words too that get interchanged, right?
Yeah.
Anonymous is you don't know who says what, but meanwhile your survey is asking for my name, my age, this and
the
that.
Department I work in. Do you sit at the desk next to the elevator?
Like, I'm not going to answer this truthfully. Oh my goodness. I mean, we could go on with that for days, but let me ask you this too, because you mentioned as well as designing the intentions of the employees' experiences you want that really lines up with the values of the culture, right? So how presence really meets purpose around that. Talk to me about your take on it.
Well, I'll give you an example. I've found in many cases, unfortunately, that not all organizations do a great job with welcoming teams or new team members, and beyond just that first day, making sure that they are supported so that they can be productive as quickly as possible, that they can feel a sense of belonging. So as a result, I've done a lot of work around revamping onboarding processes, as well as, what that looks like. What is the feel of it? Sometimes we can get locked down into the process and forget about, okay, how does this make me feel? Because again, when we talk about culture, it's how a person feels about going into work on Monday morning. Do they regret it? Or do they, find, that, oh God, I hate it, I don't want to go? Or they're excited about contributing. So one of the things that I was able to do recently with the group was really align our core values around that onboarding experience. Say, for example, if one of the core values was around respect. As a design team, and I say that not just with HR, but everyone that touches that experience, what does it feel like from a new employee's perspective to feel respected in that space? Yes, you have, we welcome them with the swag and the balloons and the cheers and all of that. But, it could be, for example, in fact, some feedback that we received on one project was that I'm hearing all of these terms or acronyms in the business. I don't know what that means, and nobody's, telling me. I just got to figure that out. So, even as small as developing or creating a list of acronyms that are commonly used or terms that are commonly used in the organization so that they can understand what things mean. That's a signal to respecting you as a professional and also respecting the space that you're in as a new team member.
Yeah. So many things swirled in my mind when you said that, because, I got these questions.
Yeah.
One of which reminded me of what I'm hearing a lot now too, and seeing quite a few articles and posts around it, was around this forced engagement.
Ooh.
And I want to give you an example, because we have so much remote work now, even though there's more going back into the office, the brick and mortar.
Right.
It's a good intent. Don't get me wrong. I think it's got good intentions behind it.
Right.
But the thought through for that was very siloed. So if you have an organization, if you have a team, let's just work with it from a team. Everybody's remote, and you start your meetings off with always talking about your children. Well, what if your team member doesn't have children?
Right.
You just disengage them. And then when that team member speaks up, everybody else goes crickets.
Yeah.
They get quiet.
I don't know.
Something as subtle as that
Yeah.
can disengage an employee.
That's right.
Or making people feel they have to participate. You don't know what's going on in their world. You have no idea. And it's all done with good intentions, right? But if you don't have communications with them, you throw over the email fence at them, these orders and directions with no context.
That's right.
Purpose and alignment to whys is, that's like playing volleyball and you got a basketball you play.
Right.
What am I doing with this? We were doing volleyball and all three of us had a position.
Right. That is so true. Well, in thinking about that, it makes me think about a CEO that I supported, and what I found astounding about her is that she was every day, very intentional about connecting with everyone, whether you sat in that space where she was or if you were remote. I can guarantee you she would know who you are. She would know something about you personally that she could connect with. And she, on purpose, not because you passed her by at the elevator, but she would on purpose walk the floor, engage, talk to you personally, or on the phone. Hey, haven't heard from you in a while. How's it going? What can I do to support you? That level of intention, I think, is incredible, but also critical in terms of transforming culture. It communicates to people that I see you beyond just being, yes, an employee of this company, but I see you as an individual, and I am concerned and I care about you.
Exactly. You reminded me of another good example too. I was working with an organization, and their executives, for their succession planning, we would have different timing of when succession was done. and we were trying to make it more centralized. So it wasn't just one-offs here and there, that we were all on a set schedule. And so as we were working through our processes, we were flying to one of our production plants. And I was amazed when I was on the plane with them, when I heard the conversations of how they knew not just the managers of these plants, not just the supervisors of these plants, but they knew the hourly associates of these plants. And I'm talking intimate, personal things about, like just things like how many children they had, if a birthday was coming up. And we're not talking just a handful of people. We're talking big production plants here that were located not even in your home country, right? And you have a 2-hour flight to go or a 4-hour flight to go to another country, and you're going, wow, I'm sitting there, my first experience of this, that's not your native language.
Right.
You know these things that are important for them beyond the quality of the work and their production and their KPIs and their performance and everything.
Right.
That to me, I was blown away, because I have been in other conversations where you didn't even know the difference of performance from one to another, let alone these things that are important for them as a human.
Right.
Human as a person. They're not getting up every day to clock in just to make you feel good. They have their own purpose for doing this, right? Exactly. For their families and for their own legacies and the things that they want. So to know those and connect with individuals at all levels, not just the ones that you think can influence your promotion or your results, right?
But yeah,
that was so amazing for me.
But you know what, and I think about this leader and how, again, her behavior permeated, or it reached at least some leaders. And I think about one in particular who was, in fact, she was over Total Rewards. And again, building that intention of caring for people, or that value, practice value, I will say, of caring for people. And one of the things that she looked at and that we worked on a little bit together was around, who are the people in our organization? What are their needs? What do they need to be productive? What would make them happy? What would make life easier for them? And as a result, in looking at that data, looking at that feedback, and actually being intentional about how to respond to it, she was able to create opportunities for access to benefits, healthcare options, resources that would be beneficial for them. So that's what I'm talking about also, about being intentional in leadership, being intentional about the decisions and the programming, the initiatives that we have, instead of, sometimes people feel like, oh, I got to have 100 initiatives to make it look like I'm doing something. There's a difference between being busy and being intentional. So I loved that about working with her, because she always was looking at, okay, well, what do our folks need? What will make life easier for them to balance life at home and life at work? And as a result, if we're looking at that feedback, that helps us to design and sculpt policy, programs, benefits in this particular case, that would be beneficial for the people.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And we're giving tips to folks who are listening, so this is good. Presence, I always say, is an inside job.
Yes.
It's on the outside, it's the inside. You could have the best Brooks Brothers, St. John suit on, whatever it is you're wearing.
That's right.
On the inside, the mindset, the attitude, and your purpose and values are not aligned with the way you're acting, then that suit just really looks like you just got it out the trash. It does not put it off. Right. I remember when I used to fly into an office, because I was working remote, and I would go in, kind of park. I mentioned this in my book too. I would park at anybody's desk that was available, because they were traveling. And I remember the VP of marketing at that time, I would love to sit at her desk. You know why? So I'm dating myself. We used phones that you would dial.
It might be before my time. I don't know. No.
Yeah, right.
They were just behind the times. It wasn't you.
You could see the number display on the phone, right?
I do remember
And
that.
whenever I sat at her desk,
Uh-huh.
people would pick up thinking it was her before the first ring ended or the next ring started.
Uh-huh.
And immediately they'd go, hey, and I said, I'm sorry, it's not Deb. You know,
Deb Sheila.
and if I sat at someone else's desk because she was there in the office that time, that call would roll to voicemail. So it triggered a question. I had to go back and ask her. I said, Deb, why is it that when I come into the office and use your desk, people pick up before the second ring? When I sit at everybody else's desk, it rolls to voicemail. I got to leave a message. Hey, it's Sheila. And then they call me back. You know? And she said, I'm going to tell you what it is. And it was during a time when I think Marcus Buckingham, Good to Great and all of that came out, strengths and things like that. And she said, I lean into people's strengths. I let them do what they do best. And they recognize that because she's consistent with it. He was consistent with that.
Yeah.
So it's not just, yes, you want to build a personal connection, but do you value the talent that people bring to help you accomplish these things, right? And you're using those strategically and intentionally or in the moment, like that manager did with you. Okay, Raquel, let's get on fries.
Yeah. Like, don't think you're too good to be on fries.
We're gonna get you on fries. You're using that from your heart. It's not just the intellect, it's the heart. And you're in those moments when you don't know what to do, you're improvising because everything else is aligned.
Yeah, it's a reflex for you as a leader because it's because it's a part of you. We talk about, in fact, you talk about being your authentic self as a leader. And it's funny, now don't bash me, but I was thinking about, I said, my first response was, well, what if your authentic self is a jerk?
Yes. Yeah, I do mention that in the book too, because some people see that word. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I've even had a friend tell me, I don't like that word authenticity because, they're just being real. I said, well, there's your truth. Yes. Right. And there are many shades of authenticity.
Surely.
Now, I'm not referring to the authentic. I'm doing this from a motive of what's in it for me only.
Right.
Like a narcissist or, I'm saying this with true, like I'm the Stephen Covey girl. I'm like saying this from universal principles.
That's right.
That go across cultures, no matter where you are in the world. Things like respect and integrity and grace, right? And seeking first to understand before you jump out thinking yours is the only opinion to listen.
Right.
Those are the things I'm talking about. I'm not giving anyone agency to be mean because you feel like in the moment they need to hear your story and you're upset.
A truth teller.
That's called emotional intelligence. Exactly. It's not authenticity. Let's learn to self-regulate.
Exactly. Okay? That's exactly right. But you know what, and Sheila, that really kind of, I think about accountability in culture building as well, because, I could be the CEO and I can be personable with people. I can, live or behave in a way that reflects our core values as an organization. But, unfortunately, some people just can't be saved.
No, they really can't.
They really cannot. And so it really comes down to, then again, as a leader, how do you hold people accountable to the right authenticity? In other words, those behaviors that are right for your organization, that align with those core values.
Yes.
Are you willing? Are you courageous enough to address it and maybe help someone understand how they're maybe authentic, their
unique style.
Their unique style. their unique style might not really align with your core values.
This is where we have a
How
mismatch.
right, if it's a competency that cannot develop over time with support, then being courageous to say that this may not be the place for you. I've been in situations in that respect, and where I think so clearly back to a high performing operations manager. People thought the world of him externally to inside that space where people worked, because he was meeting his targets on his numbers. Sales were great. All of the metrics operationally were on point. He was exceeding, very high functioning in that way. But how did he get those results? He was killing people.
Leaving dead bodies all over the place.
Everybody's all over the place. Everybody's freaked out, stressed out, burned out, because they're trying to meet those targets. He was driving. He could crack the whip, so to speak. But in that particular situation, at that time I was an HR manager, and the SVP and myself, we had to sit down with him and say, look, you know what? You are knocking the ball out the park with getting numbers, but here's our concern. Mm-hmm. Our concern is, when I look at the number of complaints that are coming through my desk that I'm having to address because your people are stressed out, or they feel that you are treating them unfairly, in some cases being verbally abusive, that does not speak to our core value of respect. Okay. And this is what needs to happen to change that. And one of the tools that we incorporated was having a scorecard that not only measured managers' performance around operations, if you will, or productivity or profit, but also measured their ability to lead people. What were those key metrics that would indicate success in those areas? Some of which, of course, would include how many complaints is Raquel getting? How many times is she having to mitigate issues that you've created around your behavior? Yes. But really kind of incorporating not just the performance around those tactical metrics, but also looking at how we're getting there. Are you getting there by motivating people to perform? Are you coaching people? Are you training people so that they know what to do? Are you supporting them? Because, let's be clear, it's not about being nice, as a lot of people say, I'm nice to people. That's great, but are you being effective? And you can be effective in working with people by supporting them, giving them the knowledge that they need, giving them the tools and resources. And as the leader that you had mentioned before said, leaning in to what works for those people. How can they be their best?
Well, I mean, we can continue on this conversation probably for another
24 hours. We need our glass of wine, Sheila.
We're missing the wine.
We're missing the wine.
I want to just kind of encapsulate. We've shared a lot of things that we've observed that's probably not the best.
Right.
Behavior and presence. Mm-hmm. But we've also pointed out some key things that folks can do. So I want to ask you if there was just one gem that you would extend to our listeners, whether they are seasoned or whether they're just starting out, when you talk about aligning your leadership presence to the culture and experiences that you want, right? What would that one gem be?
I'm sorry, I can't give one. I'm gonna do a collabo, if you will. And my collabo is,
I didn't get it to one.
You know me, I'm extra, as my daughter would say. But I would say, get out of your comfort zone. Be honest with yourself about your style and moving outside of what's comfortable for you. And if I had to narrow it down to one, I would say, listen, just simply get out of your seat and go to the people, go to folks and listen to understand what their needs are.
Exactly. And that's why I love coaching. I mean, I've done the training and development and all of that, and the success planning. The coaching skill helps the ownership of that to be held by the person instead of telling them that. Yeah. Raquel, I'm just so excited to have you here. I always ask my guests, what's a fun fact about you that people will know that you're a human HR person?
That I'm a human HR person.
You're not just a policy compliant.
Oh, absolutely not.
Well, what's a fun fact about you for folks to know about you?
Fun. I don't know if it's fun, but I will say grace.
That's true.
I always give people grace.
I've known you for years, and I can attest to that. It doesn't matter if we're talking frequently or if there's space in between. We always have that understanding for
absolutely. That's what real friends are, right?
I tell you. Thank you so much. If folks want to, connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Connect with me on LinkedIn. I believe that you all share my LinkedIn profile.
Yes.
And I'm happy to connect there.
Awesome. And if you want more tips and tricks and things about presence, any self-coaching strategies, grab my book, listen to my podcast the next time, as well as just connect with me too on LinkedIn.
Book Sheila.
So think about the last time that you were in a high stakes meeting where everything just went sideways. Did you cling to your preparation, or were you able to pivot while staying true to your purpose? Whether you're leading a team through transformation, navigating difficult conversations, or simply seeking to bring more mindfulness to your professional and personal life, this podcast offers insights on balancing structure with spontaneity. I look forward to being with you again to share an interview highlighting presence and leadership. Join us again for our next interview on presence, improv, and intention. I'm Sheila Carmichael, your host with a space to thrive.